All right, my listeners, I'm so excited about today's podcast. I have a very special guest and definitely someone that I feel like God totally just threw into my path as I was listening to another podcast recently. But I have Joelle with me today, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. But just a little recap about how I found her, how I discovered her, and why I invited her to be on the podcast today. I was listening to another pastor, and I heard this woman talking about cycles, your feminine fitness, and what your body's through each month as it cycles through what we all go through as women. And she not only that, but she was talking about how to understand what was happening with the body, and also to link it to be more productive as a wife, a mom, as owner. And told her, like I told her, rocked my world. I knew I had to ask her to come on the podcast. With that, I want to introduce you to Joelle. And actually, I'm going to let Joelle introduce herself to you because she tell you better about herself I can. So welcome. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited and so honored to be speaking to you and your listeners and everyone. So, hey guys, I'm Joelle. I am a Midwest mom of two. I live in Minnesota, and I am a hormone health and fitness coach. So I teach you ladies how to understand the cycles, the phases, the seasons that our body goes through, and how to use it as our creative superpower in productivity. I teach on my podcast all the topics of fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, motherhood. But today we're going to be talking mostly about like productivity and motherhood and work, and how you can really optimize what you get done in the best, most optimal phases. So it's not about being more productive all the time. It's knowing what is my strength right now based on what phase of my cycle I'm in, because our hormones are dictating everything. Depending on where we're at in our cycle, our brain changes by 25% in a 28-ish day cycle. So to think that we can wake up every single day and do the same thing and be the same person and have the same energy and have the same strengths even in each day to day would be very hard and challenging for us as women, which does lead to us being self-sabotaging or negative self-talk going on in our heads. And really, to get down to like, how did Joelle get started into all of this? Well, after I had kids, I noticed I was a completely different person. Any other moms were, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, productively. Like I was like, how did I get so much done before I had kids? And now I feel like I'm frazzled and can't complete like simple tasks of like buttering toast without having the fridge door open and the garbage open and all of that stuff. And so I was like, okay, I'm a totally different person. I started noticing these hormonal fluctuations and imbalances. And I know, Rachel, you've talked about really noticing like hefty PMDD. I also, same thing you talked about in one of your episodes about how like you were worried about your marriage the week before your cycle. Yeah, same. And then I also was noticing things in my health and fitness journey where I was like, I'm working out and eating healthy, but I'm not seeing progress. And I was like, I feel like I'm just fighting my body. Like, I really feel like I'm just fighting my body. So I had this like fork in the road where I was like, okay, I can either continue to fight my push harder, do more things, do more workouts, eat healthier and cleaner, and like be more productive, wake up earlier, stay up later, get more things done while I have the kids all over the place and everything. Or there's got to be a way I can start working with my body, working with how God created us as women, because we are made by Him in this way with these hormonal fluctuations. And I know that there is a way for us to optimize. So there were days where I was like, how come I'm getting so much done? And other days where I'm like, there was 2 to 3 things on my to-do list, I was overwhelmed and frazzled, right?
So when I'm listening to you, one of the biggest things I love, and it's taught me, and I love to talk about with other women, is that He gives us our struggles so that he can actually use it for good. And like, I'm listening to you, and then, momming being hard for you, becoming a mom was really difficult. And you just found yourself all kind of like on the other side of what life used to be like. So how many children do you have now?
2, they're 5 and 3.
2. Oh my gosh, how fun. So what was that transition like? What was that transition like from having it all together to not having it all together, to making the decision, I'm going to educate myself on this, and then I'm also going to teach our women? That's so inspiring. What did that look like?
Right. So first, it was really when my oldest was a year and a half. Or my youngest was a year and a half. So for a year and a half after he was born, I was like just constantly fighting, who I was now as a mom and comparing myself to who I was pre-kids, and with time, schedule, productivity, but also hormonally. And it was hard to first slow down, understand, and educate myself. So I started reading literature and books and learning from doctors and other people about how our hormones in fact impact everything from like how our brain is operating, how our energy is, how we sleep. And then I started implementing things myself week by week by week. And then my like 2 best friends became my guinea pigs next. And they were like, Joelle, you've got to start talking about this. And so as I started sharing it bit by bit, more and more, and also feeling more vibrant, feeling more aligned, feeling like I was a well-rounded woman, I then started sharing it with more and more ladies. And now it's just like with every woman, I now know like this is just a part of how we operate. So it was really a year and a half of fighting. And then, like I said, my youngest is 3. So another year and a half of learning and implementing and teaching to get to where we are now. And I know, yeah, the mess becomes the message, but it really did feel like 4-ish, 5-ish years of just fighting to figure out why I needed to operate in a better way, that led to here.
I love that. I love that for being to that and following God was leading, because, and I'll link her podcast in the show notes, but her podcast is amazing. Your podcast is amazing. Like, and you address things that I really believe that most of us just think, oh, it's just something I have to live with. Like how I think about myself, how I view myself, that time of the month, like it's just something I have to endure. When really, if we can educate ourselves and we can change some things, it's a lot more endurable, if I can say it that way. But would you go into right now, talk about the 4 phases, I think it's four phases. Did I get that right? 4 phases, and what happens in our body and our mind that affect that 25% shift in the mind. What's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really do love breaking it down phase by phase, or you can really think of it week by week, because your cycle rolls together. And I'll likely reference an image of a bell curve as I'm talking. So just thinking of that like bell curve rising and falling shape as I talk through things, but I'll roll through each phase and then I will explain like what our hormones are doing and then what our like superpower is for that phase in the realm of productivity. So ladies, if some of you are hearing these phases for the first time, no worries. I was in my late 20s when I was like, wait, luteal phase? What? Like, what is that phase? I did not even know like what's going on. It's a-okay. We don't know, and we don't care to retain what we know until it's relevant to us, but you're really gonna feel like this is all new information. But after you hear it and you really think about it, you're going to start noticing, wow, this is so in tune with how I'm created. Because that's what it was like for me too. It's like, oh, all this new stuff and is this working? And then I was like, wow, if I would have just trusted myself more and was more in tune with literally how I was created, then I would have better understood and operated in this way naturally, right? But it's because of like diet culture and fitness culture and everything that, and productivity hustle culture that's saying, no, this is how you need to operate, like a robot, like a machine, like a no pain, no gain, keep going, make no excuses type of stuff. So let's roll through the phases, and I'll start with follicular phase. And that is right after our period is done. So your period is done, you start follicular phase, and it lasts 7 to 10-ish days. During follicular phase, our hormones are on the rise. So we're at the beginning of the bell curve rising. And when estrogen and testosterone are rising, it triggers the area of our brain that is in alignment with creativity and new ideas. So during this time, this is a great time to plan things out. Like maybe you have an idea for a product or an event or things you need to plan out. Like you'll really just find follicular phase as a phase where newness comes to mind. Like, oh, I got an idea for this. I got an idea for that. Just take note of that creativity and that notion that is on your heart and in your mind, right? And then you can create plans of action for some of those goals or those plans that you want to have for your work life, your business, or even your family. Like follicular phase is a great time to even just be like, I'm going to meal plan for 3 weeks, because it's just going to come so naturally to be like, oh, well, if I make this, then I can make this. If I make this meal, well, then the leftovers can really roll into this meal. That's how our brain is working during follicular phase when estrogen and testosterone are on the rise, because that energy is rising up. And during this time of follicular phase, this is really that time where you as the mom feel like you're crushing it with your to-do list. Like you're going through that to-do list, you're getting stuff done in work and around the house, and you're feeling like you're looking cute, and you've got like this vibrancy about you, which rolls into ovulation phase, where you probably are that like productivity queen that you wish you were through your whole cycle, right? But just because you don't feel all the time doesn't mean you still can't harness different strengths that we are created to have.
So this is a phase where I bust out the social media and I cook a really awesome dinner, and I help the boys nail their homeschool, and I write all the captions content, right? That's where I'm at when I'm in the follicular phase. And I do wish it lasted as long, but it doesn't. But I love that you're teaching us to take advantage of it. That's so valuable. So okay, follicular phase. What's next? What happened after that?
Next is ovulation phase. And ovulation phase is like 3 to 5-ish days long. And it is that top part of imagining the bell curve. So your hormones are at their highest peak, specifically estrogen peaks during our ovulation phase. And this is also when energy is its highest. It's really when too your communication center in your brain is lit up. So doing things like speaking or webinars or creating podcast episodes, like you'll turn on the mic or you'll want to click go live on your social media platforms, and you can really just like speak and the words flow out. Whereas like some phases you're like, I don't have anything to say, right? No, during ovulation phase, you're like, I've got this. You could just hand you a mic to speak on what you love. And it's really a time where you can execute, do the things, take some of those social media pictures that are for the content that you created in your home. Maybe this is a great time to have some conversations with your family. Like it's a really good time to have a family meeting where you need to talk about some things, because oftentimes our rose colored lenses are on during this phase. I have a really hilarious example that I've shared a lot of, even down to how cycle syncing impacts our marriages and our relationships. Is my husband, we live in Minnesota. We get tons of snow in the wintertime, like tons and tons and tons of snow. And he loves going out in the tractor and moving snow for not just our house, but the neighbors. Me in ovulation phase, I'm like, oh, my husband is the best man ever. Like I married such a man of service. He is so thoughtful. And then in another phase, cough, cough, late luteal or menstrual phase, I'm like, you are out in that tractor all day long. I am in here with the kids. We've got snowed in, nothing to do. And you just are thinking of yourself while you get to sit in that quiet tractor and I get to sitting here with the chaos, you know? And it's the same situation, but just based on where my hormones are at. And especially with those of us who struggle with PMDD, we tend to see that swing very opposite versus when you level out your hormones. Things like that do get better. Like you still have a swing, but it's more of like a ripple in water instead of like tidal wave. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. Oh my gosh, I've lived this most of my life, like honestly and truly. And, you know, now looking back where it is not so extreme, you know, the shift is not so extreme between my phases. I look back and I think, how in the world did my mother live with me? Like, how did Matt and I get married those for 5 years, you know? But it doesn't. It makes so much sense. And it also, I think for me, just having that knowledge helps me check myself. Like when I want to be like, last week, oh, you're fun, you're so helpful, whatever. This week, why are you at home? You know, like helps me check myself and my words and my thoughts. And that's why I wanted you to come on here so badly to share that, so that we could manage these things well, manage these thoughts. I have fraudy feelings as well, manage well, and so this is so helpful. Okay.
Awesome. So before we roll to luteal, I want to just reiterate, because I kind of got distracted by the snow story. But for our strength in ovulation phase, it is communication and collaboration. So this is a really great time. Socialize, have those conversations. This is also a really good time to where maybe you want to schedule some play dates or double dates, or if your son's birthday party falls on your ovulation phase, you may just be aware that like you may be the mom that has the Pinterest party, because you had your follicular phase to plan it, and then you've got ovulation phase where like, and you come over and you come over and you come over and you come over, right? So that socialization, you could plan some things with girlfriends, or host a party, connect with others, have important conversations. That is our strength during ovulation. Luteal phase comes next. So luteal phase is between ovulation and before you have your menstrual phase. And this is one of the longer phases. It can last 10 to 14-ish days. So after I have ovulated, I really just think of like early luteal and late luteal, because in early luteal, you're back to that bell curve imagery. You're rolling down. It's not like your energy or hormones go like tank and they bottom out after you've ovulated. It's a gradual slowdown. So, you know, after ovulation, you still may be feeling like, wow, I still have energy. I still feel like I'm getting ideas. I still feel like I have energy to execute the to-do lists and all of those things. But as estrogen is dropping and progesterone is rising, and you enter late luteal, which we can just kind of call it the week before your period, this is the time where your hormones tend to feel like you're dipping down. And when we as ladies push through this phase or set high expectations for ourselves through this phase, this is when we burn out, right? Like we can get things done. We can still show up for the things we need to show up for every single day. But with these strengths in mind, you're just setting different expectations for yourself. And in luteal phase, your strengths are completion, nurturing, and tending to. So this is really that like completion of some of those projects. You know, if you've created the social media content and then you've took pictures, then maybe during luteal phase, that's when you are posting those, or you use some of those pre-created posts, or you go back into your archives and repost something that was from a long time ago that was still really good and really relevant. Maybe it's administrative stuff in your business or in your home, paperwork. Like if you have odds and ends, cleaning up your desk feels really good in late luteal phase. I always say I'm not like a clean freak, but when I am in late luteal, messes are offensive to me, because our body wants us to prepare for hibernation, which is what we're rolling into next, our menstrual phase. So during luteal, this is a great time to like get those things done, get organized, wrap up any projects, goals you plan. This may be the time where you're starting to feel very inward. And like, let's go back to that birthday party example. If you have a child's birthday party in late luteal, maybe you're like, okay, let's just do grandma and grandpa, and then like grab a Dairy Queen ice cream cake and call it good, right? And you as a mom can understand and know, like, there are really great things for every single phase, because in late luteal, this is maybe a time where you lean more on others for help and let them do it their way, right? If you have a lot on your plate and you know you are in this phase and your body is really wanting and telling you to slow down, and it's harder for you, like you sit down sometimes and you can really let the podcast episodes flow, or your social media content, or like some days you really want to get on Instagram stories, but in late luteal you're like, I want to delete social media, I'm done with everybody. That's when you know you can go on there, post the things that you want to post and share, and then delete the app for the day, and don't download it again until you're ready to hop on. Because yeah, we do tend to self-sabotage and compare during late luteal phase, because that progesterone is like really looking around, like what's going on and how are they showing up and you're not, right?
Yeah. So for me, and talking about this is that, would you say the lowest point, the late luteal phase, as far as mentally, is that the lowest point that we have probably in our cycle?
Especially with PMDD, that's something where women that don't have PMDD, they don't have like the tidal waves, like when you're really struggling. And then there's some months where things are okay. They do feel more like a floaty, wavy, instead of like tidal wave, crash, my energy and everything like that. But as you start working with your hormones, doing some things physically, nutritionally, and then productivity and understanding, it really does lighten the load. But yes, in late luteal, this is where that self-criticism can come in big time if you're looking too outward, because your brain wants you to lighten your load. Your brain wants you to say, okay, let's look at things that are going on right here. And when you're like, what's everybody else doing, it's your brain's like scattering everywhere. And so this, during late luteal, things that I do is like, just don't cram the to-do list. Like, obviously there's still things we got to show up for and get done, but simplify things. Ask for when you need help. And I know that's really hard to do. That's why I always preface with ask for help and then let them do it the way that they want to do it. So sometimes, yeah, during late luteal phase, laundry put away isn't as perfect as other times, or fill the dishwasher however you want to fill the dishwasher, as long as it gets filled. Or it's just okay to have this mindset of like, I don't have to have these high expectations on myself all the time. But when you are focused on, okay, well, I'm not strong in this area right now, this is my strength in this phase, you then see a different way of doing things, if that makes sense. And it relieves the pressure, which lightens the self-sabotage talk. And then, yeah, I mean, for you and PMDD specifically, you'll see big changes when you make shifts nutritionally in your ovulation phase to help excess estrogen flush, but then also with workouts and like what you're doing physically in late luteal phase, that also will help with energy. So that's kind of outside the realm of productivity, but there's so many things we can do to just really help our body support itself, because there's a lot going on internally late luteal that our body is doing, and that's why we're more tired. It's kind of like, it's not like the first trimester of pregnancy, but it is in the sense of like, in the first trimester of pregnancy, our body is doing a lot to make a tiny egg into a tiny human, right? There's so much going on that we're not seeing. It's kind of the same with late luteal. our body go like sensing, have we conceived? And then it's literally creating an organ that you then shed in your menstrual phase. It's doing so much more than what we see.
So this, I'm thinking productive wise, and just, men doing like, well, this is not to do a big launch of something in your business, or to plan a big project for homeschool, or even maybe even into, hey, yeah, I'll speak a podcast on this date, but instead say, oh, let's move it to another date, maybe the ovulation phase where I'm communicating better and I don't want to be all alone in my closet. Yeah, that does help a lot from a planning standpoint as we're mapping out our month. Like, what do I want to shift so that I can just rest and maybe not be totally alone, but be alone and just get through this phase until the next one.
Exactly. And that leads us to completion, menstrual phase and people, when I talk about hormone health and cycle syncing, everybody thinks I talk about this phase the most. I talk about this phase the least, because with menstrual phase, it is when your period starts, lasts 3 to 7 days. And the best thing that you can do is, especially day 1, especially day 2, is allow yourself as much rest as you can, to rest, retreat, reflect, evaluate how the past month went, maybe like think and restore on how you can optimize, because there are, some months where I have things scheduled in phases that aren't necessarily in alignment. But if I look at my schedule in the next one and I'm like, oh, well, what if I recorded that many podcast episodes in the next week? Then I can have it in rotation for when I'm not feeling like recording, or when I know I'm struggling to get words out there. Because everybody as a human questions ourselves what we're doing, the path and plan that God has us on, right? Like, that was our sin from the beginning, is really like, do I trust God? And what we know and what the truth is that there's a season for everything. And I really reside in that verse from when I became a mom. I was like, there's a season for everything. Like, pre-kids, I was all about business and my schedule and my time and my goals and my achievements and my successes. And then I got pregnant, high risk pregnancy, got put on bed rest at 20 weeks. And it was like, this is not my plan and my time and everything, but I still trust that everything's going to be okay, because for everything, there is a season. There is a time and place for everything. And I mean, if you read Ecclesiastes 1 through, I have it right by me. That's how it's always ringing around me. 1 through 8, where it's like, for everything, there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven. And sometimes that means being productive and getting it done and being organized. And then there's other times to let it go and surrender and to rest. I mean, we think about even creation, like, we believe in how God created everything in this universe. And we do rest and restore on the 7th day as women. And that's the main objection I heard from ladies across the board when I started teaching this, is like, but the world isn't cyclical. The world doesn't operate based on where we're at in our cycles. And I was like, okay, I get it. But I still kept going back to creation and thinking of how God created the world, and God created the 4 seasons. And if you live somewhere like I do, those 4 seasons are very distinct, right? Like winter, spring, summer, fall, winter. And when I aligned follicular like spring, ovulation like summer, luteal like autumn, and then menstrual like winter, to me, that even helped me cycle sync, because I was like, oh, well, I know in spring, there's newness, there's creation, there's things happening under the surface that we can't necessarily see, but they're growing. Ovulation, things are blooming, sprouting, sunshine, outside, like, get out and do the things. Luteal, autumn, start to go inward, start to prepare, start to plan, harvest, gather. complete it out, and then winter, menstrual rest. And I was like, okay, yeah, I know the woo-woo people have kind of claimed the moon as their thing, but you know what? That's God's creation. That's God's creation. I'm just going there. And there are 4 phases in the moon cycle, like legit 4 phases of the moon that created by God, 4 phases of a feminine cycle, 4 seasons of the year, 4 aspects of our day: morning, afternoon, nighttime, and evening and nighttime. So like morning, afternoon, bedtime. You know what I'm saying? Like there's those 4 phases of our day. We're supposed to sleep at night. We're supposed to wake up, rise, and get to work, right? Afternoon, evening, celebrate, be together. Like it is all wrapped up in this creation of like plan, prepare, work, harvest, wrap things up, and rest. And isn't that crazy that our 4 phases are in that same type of routine and rhythm, where science has then said, yeah, that's how our brain is lighting up too. Like, and we are God's creation. It really is amazing to me. So whenever I hear women say like, the world doesn't operate cyclically, I'm like, yeah, man's world, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. I've never ever, I mean, you've totally just blown my mind here. And just again, pointing back to our creator. And I know, I mean, I was a girl who had the really irregular periods for a long time. Just, there are people out there who maybe say, well, that's me, I have a regular period, or I used to go aches between my period. Like before I had kids, I wouldn't have kids, But I know everybody's maybe not on the synced cycle. I think too. Even know what my point was there, honestly. But I don't anybody listening not synced up that to be discouraged, because it's one thing that you and I have discovered as in the health and fitness industry, is that so much of our irregularity or our struggles, like with PMDD, or just a big wave crashing every month, it is treatable through the way that we take care of our bodies, what we put into our bodies. I used to take birth control just to control the crazy. I mean, that was the only reason. I hated the way I felt on birth control, but it made me more mild and less angry at my husband, and it helped our marriage until I started to eat better, until I started to exercise regularly, until I started to cut certain things out of my diet. And so all that to say, there's hope, like there's always hope. And so many of our struggles figure outable. We just have to be like you and be willing to do the research and figure it out and find things that do help us feel better, function better. So this has been this game changer. I took so many, I took so many while you talked. I'm just all this. It's amazing.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm so glad. And I mean, I still am mind blown even every time I make the correlation between creation and how we as women were created. I mean, there was a time where I spent in the Bible of like what God says about our menstrual phase, and it's kind of comical because he's really often telling men to leave women alone. So it's really kind of comical. I'm like, oh, this is hilarious. Like we as women are not resting, but also leave us alone, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. Because I do have podcast episodes on hormonal imbalances and if you have irregular periods, because a lot of times when, we think of like our period being late and like the causation of it being right there in that moment. But sometimes when it's like, if it's based off of excess estrogen or too low or too high of progesterone, and when we know the things that support those hormonal fluctuations, I mean, I've helped so many women by getting their cycles to be more regular by implementing fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle and productivity things based and supplementation based on cycle. So I do have some of those resources available to anybody. If you reach out to me on Instagram, I'm happy to direct you in any way, whether it's supplementations I'm not even associated with, like nobody pays me to talk about specific ones, or if it is more of like sister friend, you got to stop running 10 miles in your late luteal phase. Like I can break it down to you in different ways, but really want to give hope to women that, you know, PMDD, PCOS, irregular cycles, a lot of that kind of stuff does get created by hormonal imbalances, which are a lot of times from pressure and stress that we put on ourselves, especially when it comes to cortisol and estrogen and things like that.
Well, I will definitely link your podcast and Instagram page in the shows, because I know that people are going to reach out to you. So get ready. But I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for taking 30, 40 minutes to sit down with me and record this. I just cannot wait. I cannot wait for my listeners to hear this. But if anything, is there anything you can pray for you about right now in your life? I know you said you're coming out of year and a half of figuring it out. Like what is your step? Like, what is your next step now that you have this figured out, now that you are helping women? Like, are you content, feel like you are where God wants you to be and serving in the ways he wants you to be?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for asking that. You ladies listening, you are so blessed with such an amazing leader who's centered in Christ. And I really do feel like we as women need to ask that question more of like, how can we pray for each other and give honest answers? So I'm going to be completely honest with everybody listening on here, where I do feel like I'm in a season of another crossroads where it's like, do I go to what's comfortable, or do I surrender and go completely into different woods? And I know God is with and guiding on both either paths, but I'm at a place where I am questioning, like, what direction? Like, I see a few things in front of me, but clarity from God would be so appreciated on like, let me know what I'm supposed to be doing next. Because right now I kind of feel like I'm going like little steps in different paths. But yeah, as a Christian woman, I think it's so important to ask the question of how can I pray for you, and then also respond in a way, even if you feel like, oh, I'm coming on the podcast to be this teacher in this area of something that I know. It's still okay to be like, I kind of don't know which direction I'm going on and what path. I mean, I've got a great business that's solid and sound, and it's kind of a crossroads of like, where should I give my time and attention and energy and whatnot. So thank you for asking that.
You're welcome. And I feel glad to share Isaiah 30:21 with you. You probably heard it, but it says, wherever you turn, to the right or to the left, your ears will hear this command behind you. This way, walk in it. And I know we can't take verse context, but I do think that God was directing people then, and he direct you, his people now. And I just know that I'm going to pray that he opens and closes his doors into his will, and that he's used you already. I have full faith that he will continue in you. So thank you for being, thank you for doing what you've done and being willing to share it. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right. See you guys later. We'll definitely have Joelle back. I'm just going to claim that right now.